First of all, I have to say it's really an honor to be able to be a president of a college when we have a ceremony, we have people speaking, that we have everybody so respectful, so engaged. Thank you very much, all the students and staff, administration here. Faculty, just you're all great, just absolutely. It's my honor today to be able to introduce the chairwoman of the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe, Lake Superior. Chair Diver has been chair since, I believe, 2007. She's been a leader in our community. She's been fearless. She's been visionary and courageous. And I say those words from my heart because every time that she plans for the good of the people, you know, she's committed to that. And so anytime that we have Chairwoman Diver Karen on campus, it is an honor. And who else will speak for the clean air, for the clean water? I know there are people out there, but she is truly a leader when it comes to thinking about our children and our children's children. Will you please give a big hand for Karen Diver?
Thank you for your kindness. One person's fearless is another person's pesty, apparently. No good deed has universal appeal when we first start out, right? Most of the hard battles actually start out with not too many people thinking that they are right or possible. So let's talk sustainability and climate. There are still people who say climate change isn't happening. Luckily, I have been able to be a part of a group where we didn't have to argue about the science. I was appointed last year by President Obama to his task force on climate resiliency and adaptation, and it was made up of governors, mayors, county commissioners, and 2 tribal representatives, of which I was one, along with Mayor Reggie Jewell from Kotzebue, Alaska. Why was I even interested in this at all? Well, lots of reasons. I am always proud of the leadership of the Resource Management Division at Fond du Lac. They have truly been immense stewards, and long before I was even involved in the government at Fond du Lac, we had leaders like Sonny Peacock and others who understood that if we are truly going to be a self-governing tribe who protects our way of life, our history, our culture, our traditions, that we had to look out for the natural environment. Invested in everything from becoming treated as a state over air and water quality, fish biologists and wildlife biologists. And what we do know from all of that work and all of that leadership is we are stressed around here. We see the moose population down in Minnesota. It's also down in Ontario. It's not just a matter of them migrating, they are dying. They are not surviving past their first year. We know that the walleye has been impacted, warming temperatures, the zooplankton, and just upsetting its ecosystem. Our agricultural zone has changed. The birch are stressed, and our edge of the boreal forest is changing and will be felt here much sooner than in other parts of the country. Our traditional food sources are stressed. The flooding knocked out a wild rice crop. Warming temperatures too soon in the spring. We saw years where there was no maple sugar whatsoever. These are not normal. But we also saw that all of those things actually created additional stressors. One of the things we saw after the 2012 flooding, which was the flood of a lifetime, is we saw a spike in mercury in the fish from 2012, the yearling fish. Why? Why would that happen after flooding? It's because all of the contaminants that we'd put in for decades in the St. Louis River and other tributaries got churned up. They were laying there in the bottom, and the water flowed nicely over the top, and they stayed there. But when we had the flooding, all of that churned up. So we don't know yet what that means for those yearling fish as they get older. It may mean, unless they metabolize it or otherwise flush it out of their fats, there may be a slot limit that we say you absolutely should not eat in the coming years. But we're going to keep a close eye on it. The lesson in all of this is that there is no forgiveness for what we do for our place and time on this planet. It will haunt you, and it will come back to bite you, and there really is no delay in taking action, whether it's personal, whether it's institutional, community-wide, that we all have a small and large role to play in all of this, which is why I was actually really delighted to be here. Little bit about the President's Task Force. So it was bipartisan, because if there's one thing that actually crosses along the party lines, tornadoes don't know whether you have elected a Republican or a Democrat. The floods didn't know that. Sea level rise doesn't matter how you vote or what your income is or what your color is. You may lose your home to storm surge. Certainly for those Native Alaskans who rely on the ocean and have been waterfront communities, they see their communities sinking and eroding away and are talking about having to move miles inland. But for a community of 30, nobody is giving them any attention. 30 here, 50 there. There's not critical mass enough for us to care about those folks who have resided in the same place for thousands of years. Their complete way of life in their traditional homelands will eventually be gone. But yet we can't seem to justify the millions and billions it's going to take to protect our coastline. We had these conversations as a part of the President's Task Force, and we talked about those things that do transcend party lines. One of the big things that came up was about water. There either isn't enough water, or there's too much water, or the water is in danger of being contaminated, or you want to preserve it, or it's going where it shouldn't be going, or it's contributing to public health issues. So water was something that everybody came to the table, and it actually transcended all of the lines. The 4 committee areas on the task force were disaster preparedness, built infrastructure, natural resources, and community health. And water was one that actually went across all of those lines. But we talked a lot about everything from access to food security. We ship our food in from other places, contributing to global warming, but also to food insecurity, and that we're not able to control its quality, and we're corporate agriculture and the use of pesticides and GMOs. And do we actually know enough about what we're consuming and the way we're consuming it to make sure that our communities, in the face of disaster and other change, have what they need locally to be able to take care of themselves. Broad themes coming out of the task force, understanding and encouraging the economics of resilience. Government is done by the low bid. You don't always get the right thing for the cheapest price. Generic food. Oh, come on, that's funny. Nobody eats generic spaghetti sauce, do they? It isn't always better to build it cheaper. Sometimes you need to build it better to withstand what you know is coming down the line. Fond du Lac had a great example of that. We had a road get washed out. It was just a culvert. Well, if we put another culvert in and we get another storm, guess what? We're replacing a road. We put in a bridge. We see the spawning grounds of native fish already changing and adapting to that, and that whole waterway becoming healthier. Put a little bit more money in now so you don't have to do it later. All of our patches and fixes to our infrastructure, road repairs. Another thing Fond du Lac is doing, we had a fourth of our housing stock in the flood get impacted and flooded. We're doing a gutter project, something so simple. But one of the cheapest and simplest things you can do around your home is look at the grade and move the water. It seems counterintuitive, but yet we don't do it. Each of us has small things like that we could do, and we need to be thinking about it from government. Another thing is around this hazard mitigation and disaster preparedness. We don't talk to each other multi-jurisdictionally about how to take care of our citizens that we have in common in responding to disasters. I told many people, and I will continue to work towards those partnerships that helps Fond du Lac be better prepared, because I'll admit it, we weren't. There just isn't the support from the federal government to help us around disaster planning, so that when it struck us, we were on nobody's radar. We called the Red Cross and they told us they were busy somewhere else, and the National Guard, we didn't even know who to call, and we were kind of on our own. And luckily, it happened slow enough where we were able to respond just using some common sense. But it shouldn't be that way. The citizens within my borders are members of Fond du Lac, and some of them are not. So the jurisdictions don't really matter, they just want somebody there. So how can we work to build those partnerships so that we can take care of our citizens together and also prevent further risk? Ensuring resilience of our natural resources. Should we be transitioning to Zone 4 trees so that if the birch die off, or when the birch die off, that we're maintaining our forest habitat for those species that rely on a healthy forest environment? What are we doing to make sure that our waterways are protected from extraordinary weather events, and that our water supply is clean? We sit in the watershed of Lake Superior, the largest freshwater resource in North America, and much of our area is, all of our area is in its watershed. Don't we have an absolute moral obligation to make sure that what's going into the watershed keeps that resource as pristine as it can be? I was fortunate enough as a part of this to visit with the mayor of LA, and they're, as you know, they're in their 4th year of a drought. And as soon as he heard that I was from the Lake Superior region, the first words out of his mouth were, "Can we put a big straw in that?" No, the answer is no. But there's some who may think it someday, because we have to balance the needs of everybody in this country. A precious commodity it is, and we have an obligation to ensure it stays clean and safe. Preserving human health and resilient population. Like I talked about the mercury, and if we're talking about local food sourcing, you should be able to catch a fish and eat it. You should be able to catch a fish and not be scared by the open wounds that you may see upon it, or the growths, or the other things that we have been putting into the water that cause harm. The problem is, we talk about not eating a fish, but we don't talk about what's happening to us as we drink those resources ourselves, and the connectedness of our underground aquifers. Lately, there's been a bit of a hullabaloo about the Fond du Lac Band seeking a designation of Class 1 air quality for the boundaries of the reservation. And we've been told quite clearly that that is not supportive of economic development efforts. My response to that is, our workers and our families and our community members and our generations have a right that we're going to look out and do those economic enterprises that don't harm them in any other way. And I use the example on the Iron Range of mesothelioma, because for a long time miners were dying and continue to die from their occupation. It is not okay to have a job for 20 years only for that to be the last thing you do for your family. You should be able to retire and have a nice life and have the fruits of your labor. You should not have to kiss your kids and your grandchildren goodbye in order to make a living. So if we know the things we are doing are harmful to one another, then we, again, have an obligation to do something about it. We see increases in childhood asthma. We see all kinds of issues coming over air quality, haze, impact on natural environment, on health. If it goes in the air, it ends up in the water. Mercury, particulate, all kinds of stuff you don't want to be breathing. Now, what's the other practical effect around our environmental regulations? We don't follow them. It's almost like they're merely a suggestion. So you put a law in the books and you say, We only want 10 milligrams per liter of sulfites in the water because we know that that helps mercury bind in fish and become methylmercury. If we know, but then we let people put in for variances and promise to do something to clean up their water, and then they don't do it, and they threaten to move, and you're going to close me if you, we're going to close down if you regulate us. So in other words, you're willing to keep them jobs and have them poison people at the same time. Why are we okay with this governance? Why do we think this is okay? Is it worth it? I say if you don't want to follow environmental regulations and you don't want to come here and make money off of our resources, and you're not willing to invest, then stay away. I like having a healthy economy. People say that we are against economic development. In case people didn't notice, we run casinos. We like people having money. We like there being economic development. We like people being able to come and have a seafood buffet and play bingo for their entertainment. It is not in my interest or the interests of the people of the Fond du Lac Band not to have a healthy regional economy. This institution is an example of supporting a healthy regional economy. Guess what? We're preparing you for careers and things that you love and care about. You can't have a healthy economy without having a healthy workforce. Governance needs to connect the dots. Not just with what's good for us now, but with what's good for us long term. All of that was kind of depressing, I just realized. And it makes you seem like there's too much. Oh my God, we're killing our kids. What are we doing? We can't do anything about it. I think that this effort here is to say that during this week, you're going to invest in your own knowledge about the tons of ways that each one of you can actually do something about it. I used the example when talking with some of the people who were interested here today. I learned something simple I could do was keeping my tires properly inflated on my car, that reduces my fuel consumption. Well, heck, I should have been doing that anyway, you know, but I didn't know. And I think this is about learning all of those things each of us can be doing, both in our personal life, whether it's watching how we consume, whether it be food, whether it be energy, natural resources, but also to build your knowledge enough to compel those folks that support you, whether it's in your government, whether it's in your school, whether it's in your faith communities, whether it's in your own home, how you take that role and compel those to make those good choices too. Because the only way we're going to connect the dots between what you do every day and what we collectively do all day, every day, with those institutions is when the citizens demand it. And I believe it now, and I believe it every day. Your government is only as good, and your institutions are only as good as the citizens demand. And you need to demand it. So there is something you can do. You can write letters, you can be advocates, you can lead by example. Instead of having someone tell you should do it because you want to. I know, I complained about the light bulbs too, I'll admit it. I hated the new light bulbs. I'm a reader, I like it really bright. I saved $32 by changing all my light bulbs in my house. $32 every month. That's a lot of money. So do it because it's in your interest too. Do it because you're going to be less of a consumer of healthcare. Do it because the more we reduce our demand, our energy resources actually get cheaper because they compete for the dollar more. Do it because it's good for our kids and our grandkids. So I support your effort. Thank you for letting me come here today, tell you a little bit about the work that we're doing with the President's Task Force. And thank you for being our partner in making it all better. Good luck, everyone.